Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Return to Campus conversation. I'm Sharon Martin, Vice President for University Relations and Enrollment Management. Today's conversation is our second in a series that we will be holding over the next several weeks to give more information and answer questions regarding WVU's Return to Campus this fall. Joining me today are Maryanne Reed, Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs, Paul Kreider, Vice Provost, Fred King, Vice President for Research, and Melissa Latimer, Associate Provost for Faculty Development and Culture. On Monday, the Provost sent a letter outlining initial plans on how we will approach academics this fall. Today, she and the team will share more details on that plan. We will follow our typical campus conversation format today. Maryanne will provide a brief presentation, and then we want to hear from you through our question and answer session. We will be using the Zoom webinar platform for today's discussion. And before we begin the presentation, I want to talk to you about some of the features to help you experience today's conversation in the best way possible. To view closed captions or subtitles, click on the CC button in the bar at the bottom of your screen. If you have questions, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen as well. When you click on that Q&A button, a separate screen will appear, and that is where you can place your question. If someone else submits a question that interests you, there's no need to ask that question again. You can just click on the thumbs up icon next to that question, and that will show us that that is a popular topic. If you have issues with audio or video at any point during today's conversation, be sure to check your personal Zoom settings. If issues continue, you can email us at campusconversations@mail.wvu.edu. We will be monitoring that feed throughout the presentation and can help as needed. We will answer some questions out loud following the presentation, but in addition, we have moderators joining us today, and they will be answering questions via typed response in the Q&A throughout the presentation. You'll then see responses in a separate tab from unanswered questions in that Q&A box. So with all of that, we're ready to begin today's conversation, and I'll turn things over to Maryanne to begin. Maryanne.
Thank you very much, Sharon, and thank you all for joining us today for our campus conversation about the fall return to campus focused on academics. I'm going to talk for about 10 minutes, providing a general overview of our planning, and then we're going to leave the rest of the time up for Q&A because we know that you have a lot of questions and we want this to be a true conversation. And I just want to say from the outset that while we have spent the past 2 months planning and trying to imagine every possible scenario, there's some things we still don't know and that we are still working on. And I ask you to be patient with us because this is an unprecedented situation. None of us has been through this before, and we are working from the best information that is available to us right now, and we'll be adapting and adjusting our plan as things change. Let me begin by sharing with you some of our planning. So give me a moment. I'm going to call up my PowerPoint. And I think, am I there?
You are there, Maryanne.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. I'm going to go back. Somehow I advanced this. Okay, give me a moment. So our first priority this fall will be safety in the classroom. And we're taking a number of steps to mitigate the spread of the COVID-19 virus and to keep our students and faculty safe. So one of the things we will be doing is testing all of our students and employees for the virus before the start of the semester, and we will be conducting surveillance testing during this semester. More details about that will be available in future conversations, but I thought it was important for you to understand the steps that we're taking in terms of the impact on the academic side. All of our students and faculty will be required to wear masks in the classroom, and the university is has purchased a large amount of PPE, and will be providing both students, faculty, all staff with welcome back kits that will have a cloth mask as well as disposable masks. We're also installing these portable plexiglass shields, 6-foot high shields in the classroom that the professor can move if they want to in front of the lectern. And if they do that, they don't actually have to wear a mask, and they may want to do that so students can see them. We'll also have some clear masks available for students who may be hearing impaired and need that extra help. And we will be conducting frequent cleanings of high-touch areas and providing disposable wipes and hand sanitizers in every classroom. And then finally, our goal is to reduce density in the classroom by 50% whenever possible. And this is based on the advice and guidance from our healthcare and medical professionals and the CDC's guidelines for higher education institutions, which are fairly broad, and we are interpreting them. We believe, and our healthcare professionals believe, that with the required wearing of masks in the classroom, that 50% density will help us to is a reasonable approach, I would say, to mitigating the spread of the virus. Okay. Number two, we are focused on supporting our students to ensure both their success and their safety. So we have a committee that is focused on pedagogy and instruction, and that is comprised of academic leaders as well as faculty. And together, we are developing a revised, flexible university attendance policy to ensure that students who are sick either stay in the dorm or where they will be isolated or in their apartments and don't come to class. And then at the same time are given access to the course material and are able to progress in their courses. So we're hoping that we can keep students who are sick out of the classroom. We're also asking our students to be responsible. And that means they will be required to wear those masks when on campus. And this is going to sound a little harsh, but students who don't comply with our policies will be subject to sanctions under the WVU Student Code of Conduct. Again, we hope our students are responsible and we don't need to do that, but we do have to ensure that we keep our students and our faculty safe. Furthermore, we are working with our faculty senate to develop a student code of conduct statement that will go in all of the course syllabi. And I also want to say that everyone who is returning to campus will actually have to complete an online module that clearly lays out the expectations for returning to campus, and mask wearing will be included in that. And then, we want our faculty to continue to interact with students and provide support, but again, for the purposes of social distancing, that faculty, we are strongly encouraging to conduct their office hours and all their meetings with students and faculty virtually. And we will continue to provide support services to students, including our advising, tutoring, and our success coaching, but we will be doing that virtually. So because we need to accomplish our social distancing goals, which again is that reduction of density by 50%, we are going to need a lot of classrooms, larger classrooms that will enable students to be spread apart. So in order to do that and to free up those larger classrooms, we are actually going to need to deliver our instruction in several modes or several types of delivery forms, and they include face-to-face instruction, online, and hybrid instruction, which is a mix of in-classroom or face-to-face and online, and sometimes it's known as the high-flex mode of instruction. Now, we're basing our decisions on about which courses should be delivered in which format on a variety of factors. That includes the fact that we want our students to have a balanced portfolio of academic experiences. So, particularly this is important with our freshmen and our sophomore, that the majority of their instruction is not online, because those students in particular want a traditional academic experience. We will base it on the availability of classrooms. Again, because of social distancing, we don't have as many classrooms that will be used as in the past. And in fact, we are looking for additional spaces, not just on campus, but off campus to enable us to do that. Our course interested, and the factor has to be the learning outcomes for an individual course, as well as accreditation requirements for the particular disciplines. Whenever possible, we will take into account faculty preferences and their needs, but that has to be in the context of achieving our larger goal of providing students with an authentic academic experience as much as we can do under the circumstances, while doing everything we can to mitigate the spread of the virus. And we will be releasing the course schedule so that everybody knows what their own schedules will look like, both students and faculty, for the fall semester by June 30th, if not sooner. And it is taking a while to figure all this out. It's a complicated process, and it's not very simple. So that's why it will take us this long. That is a priority in how we do that. Next, we know that because we are going to be teaching and asking our faculty to teach these courses in a variety of modes, including those that they've not experienced before, we will be providing a great deal of instructional support. And that includes our Teaching and Learning Commons. Will continue their webinars and training, one-on-one training for faculty who are working in these new modes. We are going to be, through the TLC, providing a summer high flex fall teaching institute. And faculty who complete this and who demonstrate the use of these principles in their courses will actually be eligible to receive this special certification. It's called a High Flex Teaching Endorsement. And it is something that will, you can put on your CV for faculty, and it's something that, is going to be in demand over the next several years. And then we are upgrading our classrooms, as many as possible, particularly those that will be hosting those high flex courses, with upgraded Wi-Fi, as well as the latest instructional technology. And we will be providing webcams. We have a number of those available for those who don't already have them on their devices and need to either stream or access streaming instructional content. We're also trying to support faculty in other ways. For faculty who have health conditions or medical conditions that make them more susceptible to the effects of the coronavirus, there is a process by which they can request special accommodations under the American with Disabilities Act, and those accommodations will be requested and will be processed. Sorry about that. With the goal of providing the best accommodation that is available, a reasonable accommodation, and that could include having a faculty member teach online. And we actually have put that information out. We'll put more out on Friday, and so that faculty can make those requests. Also, faculty, both 9-month and 12-month faculty, are covered under the university's special emergency leave plan. And what that does is it works just as it does for staff, that if a faculty member becomes sick, they can stay at home, and not come to campus, should they be sick during the course of their illness. And there's a process for that as well that I will link to. It's on our website, our Return to Campus website, but I'll be doing a special communication on Friday with that link as well. And then finally, we know that this coronavirus, this crisis has had an impact on faculty productivity, because faculty haven't either had to put more time than usual into their teaching, or they've not been able to travel and do some of their research. And so we are, my office has written revised guidelines for annual evaluation for faculty. That's part of the promotion and tenure process. And those guidelines will allow faculty to change the percentage of their assignment. So for example, if they're spending more time on teaching than normal, they can change their annual assignment to reflect that. And of course, that is taken into account in the annual evaluation process. And then we're also saying, excuse me, I just want to also say that one of the things we're doing is we are strongly encouraging our academic departments to be more flexible and to look at research in the context of faculty members' research portfolio based on being in this particular unique situation. And we're providing some guidance on how to evaluate research, as well as we are strongly encouraging the academic units to support the additional time that is spent on developing and delivering courses in these new modes of delivery, and as much as possible, including providing course relief and/or graduate student support whenever possible, because we know we're also in a difficult budget situation. Moving on to research. Someone's controlling my PowerPoint and I'm going to take it back. Back to research. So, again, this is going to sound a little, opposite of what I just said, but we are still a Research One institution, and we do want to encourage faculty to be successful in their research whenever possible. And so our committee that's focusing on research, which is comprised of academic leaders as well as faculty, have developed multiple plans, including the plan to restart research this summer using, following social distancing protocols, mask wearing, etc. And so our labs have started to open up, some of our STEM labs. They are developing our plans for ramping up that research for the fall. And then also developing a plan for research that involves human subjects, as opposed to being just in the labs. And then finally, I will say that we know travel is going to be very restricted in the fall because of course, the COVID-19, travel restrictions, but also because of our budget concerns. But the priority, I should say, will be given to research travel that is externally funded by grants or contracts. And there's more information about research on that web link that's in my PowerPoint, and also you'll be hearing from Fred King, and he'll be able to answer your questions today. And then finally, I just want to talk a little bit about our global programs and the impact that this crisis has had on those programs, as well as our planning for fall. So there are a number of our international students that may not be able to get here this fall. And so Global Affairs, our Office of Global Affairs, is working with the departments and the academic units to ensure that these students can take their coursework online. There are some international students who actually have graduate assistantships, and whenever possible, we are working with the departments to see if there is a virtual assignment for those students. And then our student exchange programs, our study abroad programs, all of them have been canceled for this fall, and we'll be revisiting what we're going to do in the spring, probably by mid-October. And again, if you need more information on that, there's a link that is in the PowerPoint, and we'll have some folks who can answer questions today. So that concludes my presentation. And
all right, great. Thank you, Maryanne. So now we're ready to move into the Q&A portion of today's discussion. Just as a reminder, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. If you have questions, when you click on that button, you'll see a box that comes up where you can type your question. Also a reminder, we may not be able to address every question today. However, our moderators will continue to answer questions via typed response in the Q&A box. So let's get started with our first question, which I think I'll start with Maryanne, and it might also lead over a little bit to Melissa. But what kind of repercussions will there be for people who refuse to wear a mask?
so let me say that, again, we're trying with the positive approach, which is that we're going to be messaging about the importance of social responsibility, everybody taking responsibility for their well-being and the well-being of others. And we believe that the majority of students will will be responsible, but we do have a student conduct policy that says that students who fail to follow our policies are subject to sanctions, and there's a process for that. We will be putting a statement in our syllabi, and faculty will be empowered to remove students from the classroom, although I know, worst case scenario, right? Although I know there's some concerns about that. Maybe Melissa can address some of those concerns that we've heard.
So I'd also say that the expectation for mask also applies for faculty and staff, and there will also be guidelines essentially for them to follow and a process in terms of if those individuals do not comply. So we're in terms of specifically what to do in the classroom, because this is a question that keeps coming up a lot from faculty. What will I do if I'm in a classroom and a student refuses to wear a mask? So we're working out that process, and we're going to give you a step-by-step, slowly taking steps to de-escalate, and ultimately, if necessary, we have some more extreme things that you can utilize. But that will be coming to you soon, and just want to let you know that many of you have raised the issue that not all students are the same in terms of their status by sex or by race and ethnicity, and that the same thing is true for faculty and staff, and that we will take minoritized status into account and how that can shape or limit options that are available to those individuals. And so thank you for raising that, and that will be part of as we begin to work this process out for fall.
Great. Melissa, there's another follow-up question, and I think you probably can handle it. It says, what if there are students or faculty who, for health reasons, cannot wear masks for long periods of time? What are their recourse?
So if you're talking about in the classroom, for a faculty member, if they are behind the plexiglass, they would not need to wear the mask. For a student who cannot wear a mask, that's a different issue. I believe they would be working with disability services in terms of trying to find an accommodation so that they can either participate in that class or an online version or another version of the class, so that, or something equivalent, so that they can move forward with their degree.
Great, thank you for that. Excuse me. Next question, this is for Paul. How will lab courses be instructed?
Good morning. Thank you, Sharon. So classroom labs, obviously, for those of you involved in those, and students as well, know that the classroom lab situation does not allow for social distancing at a great level. And so, for example, the Department of Chemistry is elected to take most of those 1-credit classroom labs online for this fall semester, and they're working through that process. The lectures will remain in a face-to-face environment, and we've looked at moving those to an alternate venue, and that's being worked out. The details should be finalized here real soon, but we're trying to account for, again, a balance between the lecture and the lab. Once face-to-face, and the lab component would be online.
All right, great. Thank you, Paul. Melissa, another question for you. The question is, would you want to answer a question, excuse me, let me see. Can you answer a question about support and resources for GTAs?
For GTAs, so yes, so the accommodation process also is true for graduate assistants who are employed either for research, graduate research assistants, or graduate teaching assistants. Catherine Carricker has been working on that piece with legal, and so there's going to be a clearly defined process and also form for them to fill out. She should be sending a message out at the end of this week or the beginning of next. It'll be going to directors of graduate studies as well as chairs, and then there'll be information as well on the website of the for the Office of Graduate Life. So it'll be a very similar process where if they have an underlying health condition, or if they live with someone who has an underlying health condition, they would fill out a form and ask for modifications.
All right, great. And Melissa, another question for you. It says, will the ADA accommodations be available for faculty who have to care for a family member who contracts COVID?
For ADA, for someone who actually has COVID.
Yeah, the question is, will the ADA accommodations be available for faculty who have to care for a family member who has contracted COVID?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, let's see what other questions we have here. Maryanne, this might be for you, or we can pitch it to whoever you think might be best to answer. It says, will faculty and graduate students be allowed to come to their office to work in the fall?
So what we're saying, yeah, I think I can answer that. We are, you know, we're trying to reduce density, not just in the classroom, but on campus in general. So our Office of Talent and Culture is going to come out in a few weeks to talk about how we are going to try to de-densify the workforce and allow some people to work from home while others would be working, you know, in their offices with masks. But what I would say to you is we are strongly encouraging our faculty when they are not teaching or working in their research labs to work from home. And that means, again, conducting their office hours and their meetings virtually. And really minimizing the time they are at the office. That said, some faculty may actually have to teach their courses using the technology that they have in their offices. Then they need to shut their doors, do their work, don't interact with other faculty and students, and then go home. So we've got to be reasonable, right, in how we approach this. You know, just some people are going to have to go to their offices for limited periods of time.
All right, great. Thank you, Maryanne. Fred, this question is for you. The viewer asks, can undergraduate students be involved in research in the fall semester? Many students do research for credit, independent study, etc. If undergraduate students can take research for credit, will they have to substitute other classes to avoid falling short on credits?
So this is one we're still working through at the moment. You have to keep in mind that the goal is to minimize density on campus. And also, we want to make sure that in the research labs, there's sufficient space for social distancing. The priority in the lab would be first for graduate students who are supported by external funding. Second would be graduate students who need to do the research to complete their degree. And then we would have to consider whether or not there's enough space left to have undergraduates in the lab. I would say at the moment, it would probably be better to plan that undergraduate students will not be engaged in lab research during the fall, and that they should look for other kinds of courses to fill in that credit hour gap.
All right, great. Thank you, Fred. Paul, I think this might be a question for you. It might be a mix of you and Maryanne, but the question is, how will students be engaged how will students be engaged outside of the classroom by faculty? I hope the coronavirus does not become a crutch or excuse for not taking this responsibility on in the coming academic year. So again, how will faculty be engaged outside of the classroom with our students?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I have always wondered, you know, how do students sometimes take advantage of certain situations, and then faculty, you know, I think they need to become creative on how they can engage students. And obviously the norm is not what we're going to be able to do. We're going to have to become creative and think of alternate ways. The Teaching and Learning Commons stands at the ready to, you know, help and assist faculty with learning and the other ways of engaging students, you know, whether that's in a face-to-face environment or whether that's in a hybrid environment or an online environment. They have multiple tools that they're aware of and that they can train faculty on to assist them in better student engagement. And I think this is a perfect time for faculty to learn more techniques and to basically evolve with the changes of education today.
All right, great. Paul, another question for you. The question is, when will more detailed guidelines be available for laboratory courses?
Yeah, it's a good question. So Dr. Evan Witters, our Associate Provost for Undergraduate Education, is leading a committee that has some faculty representation on it, as well as leadership and administration regarding instruction. And so they're going through some details, and they're going to be working out some of those kinds of guidelines. One of the guidelines they're working on right now is the attendance policy and procedures to put in place if students are not attending classes, and what basically the steps faculty can take. They'll be working on other types of guidelines as they go through, at least through the month of June. Probably some guidelines on classroom labs would be available probably in early July. I'm just guessing, but I think that's a safe guess.
All right, great. Thank you. Fred, this question is for you. It says, if your research is community-based, traveling to different regions to interview people focus groups, what is the guidance? So again, if your research is community-based, traveling to different regions to interview focus groups, what is your guidance?
So I think where we are at the moment is we've said that that sort of human subjects research is really only allowed on campus. We are allowing travel if people are going to collect data, but not from human subjects. So that is something that we have to re-examine as we get closer to fall, and it will really depend upon what the situation is with COVID in different areas around the state and around the country.
All right, thank you, Fred. Melissa, this next question is for you. It says GTAs often have group offices. They are also the ones who share living spaces. Oops, sorry, that question just moved on me. Let me see where that went. Here we go. GTAs often have group offices. They also are the ones who share living spaces and don't have as many resources to purchase needed equipment to work at home. How will this be handled?
In terms of, I don't know how to address the thing about where they live and how many people they live with, but I can talk about in terms of when they're on campus. So the academic leader in charge of that department or unit will be given guidance from talent and culture, as Maryanne mentioned earlier, and that will be about looking at who's on campus and when, and this includes their faculty, their staff, as well as their GTAs and their GRAs. And the whole point of it is making sure that people are not on top of each other in space. And so they'll have to work out a system where that space reduces the density and people have access to it. And they might have to find additional spaces. I think Paul mentioned earlier that the university has looked for spaces that they haven't thought about using before just to spread people out. Departments and academic units can do the same thing. But that their chair will be given that guidance. And it's not, again, not just for looking at when staff come and go and are in the building, or just not when faculty are there, but also when graduate students and also undergraduate workers. And so it's a lot that we're asking of them, but we think it's really important to keep track of all of that so that the density stays low and that they also get access to the resources that they need.
All right, great, thank you. Paul, this next question is for you. It says, will the pass, high pass options still be available for classes like this past semester?
So I think the quick answer to that is no, and let me state why. Obviously, if things change from what we're planning at this point, then we could revisit that. But right now, the plan is not to have a high pass or pass-fail option. We did that last semester because we felt like it was the best thing to do when we basically took a semester and immediately in a week or 2 week period moved it online. And it might have been the fair thing to do for students. And we talked about all those circumstances and basically consequences of doing it. And we figured that, since it was kind of a thing that was happening nationally, we would also follow and invoke that grading option. The plan right now is to not do that. Why? Well, because we've had optimal, or not optimal, but much more time in preparing for a fall semester and to move things online that need to be moved online, and faculty have time to prepare for that. Moving things to a hybrid instruction, faculty have more time to prepare for that. And students also now have the option of knowing what type of course they're going to go into, and they can change their schedule as they need to. So for those reasons, at this point in time, we are not going to use a high pass, pass-fail option.
All right.
And another factor is that, right, am I right, Paul, that it can affect when students apply to graduate school, professional schools, if they have too many pass fails on their record, it can actually hurt their ability to get into the schools. And so we did that as an emergency, but it really is not a standard way of operating.
That is correct.
All right, great, thank you. I also want to remind our viewers that this session is about academics, and so I understand we've got a lot of other questions that are outside of academic realm today. We're going to answer those in future conversations, so be sure to check the Return to Campus website that outlines exactly what topics we're going to be discussing when with those particular leaders. So if you don't see those questions answered today, that's why we're focusing on academics with this particular session. So with that, we have another question. I'm going to give this one to Paul. It says, yesterday was the first time I was able to watch the first video of this series, and I believe I heard that most freshman and sophomore classes were going to be online. Is that the case?
That was my mistake, by the way.
Pardon me?
That was my mistake because I transposed what I was trying to do. So clarify it, Paul.
We'll clarify that today. Yes,
Yeah.
Paul.
We have a number of team members on the provost team and also college folks at the chair level, the dean's level, that are working diligently to try to ensure that freshmen and sophomores do not have an online schedule. The registrar's office worked extremely hard over the last month to create block scheduling for our first-time freshmen. And we have worked to put those, to configure classrooms in blocks or course schedules in blocks so that students will have a mixture of some online instruction and face-to-face instruction. Now, having said that, we are now going through the process of determining who's going to qualify for ADA accommodations. As of today, we have 53 faculty who have requested an ADA accommodation. And some of those accommodations may end up moving a course or courses, depending on what that faculty member load is, to an online instruction. So we're going to have more courses move to online instruction between now and the first part of July. And so our goal is to ensure a real campus experience for our freshmen and definitely also our sophomores. So, but again, this is a fluid thing and it's happening in front of us. So we're trying to do the best we can. That is not our intention to move students online unless we absolutely have to. We've worked diligently with our 50% capacity in our classrooms. We've run the test schedules for courses in a downtown campus and the Evansdale campuses. West Virginia Tech has got it all figured out. Potomac State is doing well in this process, but we have 100 sections without rooms in the downtown campus and 90 sections without rooms right now currently on Evansdale, given 50% capacity. That was after we had identified some courses that were large lectures, and we decided it would be best to move those online. And that was after we had identified 30 courses that would be top, primary candidates to become hybrid instruction. And so what we've done now is we've looked at the capacity of course sections in the system, and we've gone to colleges and asked them to voluntarily to change the enrollment capacities on those course sections to allow us to really run that test schedule again and see where courses fall into rooms. So right now the colleges are accepting about 2/3 to 3/4 of our suggestions on changing enrollment caps. And we are hopeful that we'll get down to getting most of our courses scheduled in the classrooms without moving more things online. Now we have also determined several new classroom venues. Arnold Hall is one. We've determined a couple of rooms in the Evansdale campus in Towers. We've looked at the Met Theater. We're looking at the Wesley United Methodist Gym. We're looking at putting more things in the mountain lair. We're going to use the Gluck Theater. And we're working now with ITS to provide all of the technology and connectivity in our new classroom venues for the fall semester. So this has been a monumental task, a lot of folks involved, and I want to thank every one of those folks involved in this process, and I appreciate your work. And we'll hope to have more information about the course schedule and all of these other details at the end of June.
All right, great. Thank you, Paul. And this next question actually relates to what you just talked about. It says, my understanding is that many courses will be taught in classrooms that will not be 2 times the capacity of the course. Therefore, not all students will be allowed to attend each class. So do we establish rosters for who comes to which class? And what about exams? Will those all have to be virtual?
Yeah, so we've been working with the facilities folks to do diagrams and new configurations of seating for classrooms, and some classrooms are going to be tighter, and the 50% capacity will be, below that number or above that number, that percentage in some cases. We are going to work hard to not have to do a situation where only half the class can come to a class, to a course day, and the other half can't. I mean, we're going to try to avoid that, but there are some faculty who are opting to teach in that kind of style to maintain a classroom. But we're working to adjust the classroom schedule so we won't have those kinds of issues. Once we have a course schedule set, we'll start working with faculty to determine what changes and adjustments they'll have to make and what we'll need to do to assist them to make those adjustments. So this is all working closely together, and we're fluid, and we're going to have to do this together and make the best options available for our faculty and our students.
All right, great. Thank you, Paul. Maryanne, this might be a question for you, and we can pitch it to others as well, but it says, what protocols and social distancing measures will be used for the implementation of common exams? In the past, exam rooms have been filled to the brim.
I can't answer that to any level of specificity other than to say whatever social distancing guidelines are in place for the classroom should account for that. But we're going to be offering in the classes that are delivered online and even in hybrid mode testing online. So it's going to be a real mix of how we do that. Paul, is there anything you want to add?
No, I think that covers it. Again, I'll just say, you know, we need, like President Key said, ambiguity is our friend right now. We're going to work through all these things, and we'll get to a point and we'll make decisions. But we have to work together to determine what the best solutions are.
All right, great. This question is for Melissa. It asks, will faculty members who are not themselves high risk, but have family members in their home who are members or members who are vulnerable populations be able to seek accommodations? So again, the faculty member is in high risk, but they live or care for someone who is.
Absolutely. Faculty can, as can GTAs. So if GTAs are in a household where their child or partner has an underlying condition that makes them at higher risk for more extreme COVID symptoms, they could also apply for that.
Okay.
For an
great.
accommodation through ADA.
Melissa, do you want to talk a little bit about sort of the map of kind of what you do in what situation that we're going to be sharing?
Sure. I mean, there is a flow chart that we have put online on our website, and that link to that will be in your message, I believe, on Friday. Is that correct, Maryanne? Mm-hmm. So a lot of these things that we're talking about in terms of where it'll be located, you'll be able to get that in information on Friday. But it basically takes you through the different steps that if you're a faculty member and you have an underlying health condition, here's the steps that you would follow. If you're a faculty member and you have someone in your household with an underlying health, here's the steps you would follow. If you're a faculty member who then gets sick, but you are asymptomatic, here are the steps you would follow. If you have mild to moderate symptoms and it goes on past a certain length of time, this is what you would do. If it goes past a certain time, this is what would be available to you. And if the conditions linger and become a problem for you, then you have an accommodation because of symptoms that you now have as a consequence. So it goes through multiple scenarios, and that's going to be coming out tomorrow.
All right, great.
And we'll be glad to answer any questions after it comes out as well. And also, as Paul said, we have over 50 so far, and this is the first time that we've done this before, and we're still working through some of those processes.
All right, great, thank you. So Paul, this question, excuse me, is for you. It says, if all of my classes will be online and I'm an out-of-state student, so sorry, do I need to return back to campus? I know you said we're trying not to have that happen, but can you address that?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I mean, it depends on the student. I mean, I would hope that the student is chosen an all online schedule. If the student has received an all online schedule and that wasn't their choice, then we would want them to contact us and to contact their advisor, contact the department chair of their major, and have that discussion. That is certainly not our intention for students to have an all online semester. If they've made that choice themselves, and then it's up to them whether they decide to come back to Morgantown or not. We certainly aren't going to dictate that to them. We would like to have them come back to Morgantown and follow social distancing and safety guidelines and be a member of our community. But again, I think it's a matter of choice. And if it's not a matter of choice, then we would like to help you figure out the best solution for you.
All right, great. Thank you, Paul. So Maryanne, this next question is for you. We had a student who's writing that they did not have the best experience with online learning this past spring. And will that be different if they have an online course this fall? Can you explain the difference between the two modes of instruction?
Absolutely. So we had to pivot to what we're calling really remote instruction. We had 2 weeks to pivot in the spring. We didn't have time because those decisions were being made very quickly in light of the developing situation around the virus. And so we didn't have time, and faculty didn't have time to develop and deliver an online course in the way that we typically do that. Building a shell and e-campus, you know, having all these elements that are part of an online course. So really it was, I think, the way we delivered instruction, or the way instructors did, was the best way that they could, right? With not having all the tools, not having all the time. And I will say, so let me just say that we'll have more time to do that for the fall. It should be a very different experience. But I also want to say, we participated in a national survey called the Ithaca Survey that surveyed our students. And the students, by and large, were pretty happy with their experience. They understood the limitations, but they appreciated how the faculty really went out of their way to ensure that they were able to access the course material and to satisfy the course requirements. But it wasn't an ideal situation. I don't think anybody would say that it was, but I think given the circumstances that we had to deal with, I think everybody did remarkably well. But it will be a different experience in the fall, much more time to prepare.
All right, great. Thank you, Maryanne. Paul, I believe this question is for you. It says, for a hybrid course, how will we handle exams? All online or be face-to-face in the classroom? An online session will be an online test. It will be difficult to keep the same difficulty level.
Yeah, I agree. I think consistency is probably what we need to think about when we're talking about teaching our students and testing them. If we're teaching them in an online environment, we want to test them in an online environment. If we're doing a hybrid course, and some students are coming to class and some students aren't, but I think we want to make sure that we're testing all students the same way so that there's equity. But I would say, if you have questions about testing and want some guidance, again, the Teaching Learning Commons can assist in many ways to help faculty figure out creative ways to handle a hybrid environment and to test the students equitably.
All right, so Paul, I'm going to stick with you. This next question is, my lab classes are primarily outside. Will these be allowed, for example, at the Arboretum? And what about the labs that we need to transport students off-site?
So the quick answer is yes. I remember when I was talking to Dr. Coben and Dr. Marsh, our health professionals, a few weeks ago, and they made the comment, can we move all the courses outside? Now, obviously, we can't do that. We don't have the technology outside to instruct our students well. But obviously, lab courses and courses that can be done outside are encouraged. Obviously, the social distancing when we're outside is less stringent. And the details about transporting students to those offsite laboratories, whether it's the Arboretum or the farms or whatever it might be, we're still working on details to get that transportation taken care of. But the answer is yes, outside labs will happen.
All right, great. Thank you, Paul. Maryanne, this next question is for you. It asks, are criteria being developed for when in-person instruction would be halted if an outbreak poses a serious threat to the WVU community?
Well, one of the things that we're doing, so the answer is yes. Right now, we're primarily focused on opening up the university for fall, opening it up and having face-to-face instruction. But one of the things that we're doing is we have this committee that I mentioned that is focused on pedagogy and instruction, and they are coming up with some guidelines and in some cases some expectations for faculty about how to prepare their courses in case we do have to go online. So, you know, there'll be certain elements, every course will have to be built in an eCampus shell, there'll have to be the syllabus available, and we will provide guidance to faculty on how to make that transition. But we have to, one of the things we're saying as a general message is that all faculty need to be prepared for that inevitability, and that we don't know what's going to happen. We assume that with all of these social distancing protocols in place, the reduction of density in the classroom, that everything will go fine. But, you know, this is an epidemic and we've not experienced this before. So, you know, the general message that we are saying to faculty, and we will be saying, is be prepared, but we will provide you some tools that will enable you to do that.
All right, great. Thank you, Maryanne. Paul, this next question is for you. It says, if a class is online or hybrid, what assistance does the university provide to students who have poor internet connection?
So it's a good question. We did this late in the spring, and we did it through the summer, and we're continuing. We'll do it as we need to. We have provided US cellular hotspots for students who have connectivity issues or internet connectivity issues. And so we are working through those requests, and it's very possible for students to obtain a hotspot. I actually use one in my house when I have poor bandwidth at my home. It works very well. One thing we're also doing is we're providing webcams for students who may have the need to have a webcam to take their course, whether it might be the testing situation or whatever it might be. So we're working through those kinds of issues. And if there are new issues that we need to learn about, please don't hesitate to bring those to our attention.
All right, great. Thank you, Paul. Maryanne, this question is for you. The viewer says, the provost keeps saying that faculty have more time to prepare for fall semester, but many faculty are 9-month employees, so they are not paid in the summer. Can you please explain?
Yes, so I have been a 9-month faculty myself. This is something that I'm familiar with. What I would say to you is we all prepare for our classes for the fall. It's just part of what we do as faculty members. And also faculty, even though they are 9-month, they work in the summer, whether it's preparing classes or doing their research. And so one of the reasons that we are providing revised annual evaluation guidelines is that if you spend more time than usual on preparing your courses for summer, that can be reflected in your teaching assignment, which impacts your evaluation. But in reality, we have to do this. This is something we have to do as an institution. We have got to be prepared to deliver instruction to students in the fall so that they have a high quality academic experience. It's not a choice, but we're trying to create, I would say, avenues that allow faculty to at least get credit for their extra work, but it is not a choice. We have to do this.
All right, great. Thank you, Maryanne. Melissa, I believe this question would be for you. It says, if a faculty member requests an accommodation and is refused, is there an appeal process?
So if a faculty member has a condition as recognized by the CDC under the ADA, and they provide that documentation, not to us, but to the ADA coordinator, they will get an accommodation. Will they get the exact thing that they want? It depends. It depends on what they're asking for and what the chair has already, the modifications that the chair has already done in their academic unit. And those things that Maryanne outlined and that second or third slide talking about all the things that have to be taken into account at once. And so there will be some type of modification made to assist that individual if they meet the criteria after submitting the paperwork and everything. Every single person might not get the exact thing that they want, but there will be some type of modification. We'll do everything within our power to meet that need.
All right, great.
And so my guess is, and again,
Well,
my guess is for ADA, if there's an appeal process for the ADA currently in place, then it would also be for this one.
all right, great. Thank you. So Paula's question is for you. The viewer says, I'm wondering why we have to have a week of remote instruction after Thanksgiving. The University of Pittsburgh is also starting instruction on August 19th and will complete all instruction before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so we had a committee of folks, quite a large committee actually, over a month ago that landed on our academic calendar. And we didn't just land on that calendar for the fall semester, we landed on a calendar for the whole academic year. One of the things that we had to consider was what the Higher Learning Commission requires in terms of the weeks of instruction. And they count that over a whole academic calendar for a year calendar and not just per semester. And so what we looked at was, first and foremost, the safety of our faculty, staff, and students, getting students back on campus, how to prepare for testing, how to prepare for social distancing, how to roll the students in gradually so that we don't do it all at once, looking at a bunch of different things. And we've been working with our health officials, working with student life, and a lot of factors came into play as we made our considerations. Other things that we didn't want to have happen was have the students leave campus and come back. We saw what happened after spring break this last semester to many universities. And so we decided that we are going to end our semester and face-to-face instruction, let me say, face-to-face instruction just prior to Thanksgiving, but then return to online instruction and review for 1 week after Thanksgiving, and then finals, online finals the week after that. The reason that 1 week exists after finals after Thanksgiving, that 1 week after Thanksgiving is to preserve our required weeks of instruction according to the Higher Learning Commission. We did cancel the fall break. So we're trying to make sure that we have the right amount of Mondays, Wednesday, Friday instruction, Tuesday, Thursday instruction, etc. We did not want to have to use Saturdays and Sundays for instruction. We did basically the same thing in the spring break. We were asked to not have a spring break, but then to pick days off during the spring semester to give our faculty, staff, and students a rest. We were asked to come back late in the spring to basically keep in mind a potential flu season as well as a potential another outbreak of COVID-19, and to basically re-implement another testing program. So that's why we're starting a little bit later in the spring semester. We're ending on time with the normal calendar in the spring semester, but it's a balancing act between the two semesters to make sure we have the requisite number of weeks of instruction as required by the Higher Learning Commission. So those are all the factors that weighed into that academic calendar.
All right, great. Thank you, Paul. And I know we're coming right up on 11 o'clock, but I do have one more question that I think is good for us to end on. And Maryanne, that question is, what is the best way for faculty to share ideas they have with leadership? Should they use the return to campus email address?
Answer is yes. We would like you to use that. Those questions will get directed to the right people. We are very responsive to those questions and have been, since all of this began. We want to know what you're thinking. We want to know what we're not thinking about. And we want to make sure that we are doing the right thing for our community, truly. And we know, by the way, this is a heavy lift. I want to end by saying I want to thank everyone, both our students and our faculty, for making the best of things, putting forth your best effort, and being very positive and flexible and patient during a time of ambiguity and uncertainty. Together, I believe we will be able to make this work, and it will be a successful academic year.
All right, thank you, Maryanne. I know we have one last slide that we have some contact and information, so if we can get that put back up. Maryanne, you may have that, I'm not sure.
Oh, I have the power. Let me see if I can go find it. Hang on a second.
You got the power of the PowerPoint.
I love that. Let's see.
As we're putting that up there, we just want to again thank you for attending today's campus conversation on behalf of Maryanne, Paul, Fred, and Melissa. We appreciate the opportunity to be here with you as we work together towards our return to fall. For more information, you can see there on the slide. Be sure to visit the website www.wvu.edu/return to campus, and we'll have additional information there. And if you have any additional questions, you can email all of those to returntocampus@mail.wvu.edu. campus.edu, and we will address them as quickly as we can. An archived version of this conversation will be available at the Return to Campus website. And just as a reminder, please be sure to watch your email next Tuesday on June 16th. You'll see a letter coming to you via your inbox regarding campus safety measures. And that will be the next campus conversation that we have on June 18th at 10 o'clock in the morning again to have further conversations about how we will keep our campus safe as we return. So again, watch your e-news and your U-news and your inbox for more information. Thanks again for taking part in today's discussion, and please continue to stay safe and be well. Thank you.